Hi, everyone. I'm Mac McKelvey, and we are back for another awesome episode of the Some Disruptors podcast. So with me today, as always, is the girl, HK. What's up, HK?
Hey, Mac. How you doing, lady? Staying
Good.
warm?
Got about a foot of snow in the last week or so. I think we're supposed to get another foot this week. So finally, winter has come to Vermont. So it's beginning of February. Walked out on the frozen lake this weekend. So all good. All good. How about Scottsdale? Is it warm and beautiful and making me jealous?
75 and sunny, right? I've been doing my second workout of the day in the evenings, going for a ride or a walk, and it's just been glorious.
Okay.
Can't complain. Can't
have to put it
complain.
on here. I have to put it on. Well, I want to welcome our guest today because someone that I was introduced to fairly recently, but is now immediately in the inner circle, and we want everyone to know him if you don't know him already. So Michael Verez, Mora, welcome. You're the founder and CEO of Yellow Lion, and
Yes.
want to thank you for being here. So say hi to everybody.
Hey, everybody. So great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
How's the weather in Poughkeepsie?
Cold. I mean, similar to you, where we're looking at about a feet of snow that has kind of cooled off a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, the weather here has been freezing. And actually, I feel like the weather has been kind of like up and down, I think,
we've
for
had
all
the
of
same.
us, right? Like cold, then warm, then cold again. So we're at a cold front right now. So looking forward to the snow melting and all that good stuff.
Sort of mirroring the world right now, right? The weather's
And we're all in
unpredictable.
situation in one kind or another.
Yeah, it literally is. Well, for those that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about Yellow Lion and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so Yellow Line is a cross-category digital experience agency. We specialize in brand ideation and web development. We've been up and running for about 7 years, and we work with clients in the entertainment sector. So Candle Media, Reese Witherspoon's Hello Sunshine. We work with NYU, Dartmouth University, and then B2B sectors is primarily our area of expertise. And my background was actually in fashion design. Funny enough. So naturally, this kind of goes from one thing to the next as it does. But Yellow Line has been up and running for about 7+ years, and we're so thrilled and proud of it. I mean, it has really been an effort, not only, of course, with our team, but with also our wonderful partnerships that we've had with other agencies and just mentors throughout these great 7 years. So, yeah, that's just a little bit about what we do and how we kind of came to be in a, very short sentence.
Tell us a little bit more about what you do. So you're working with Hello Sunshine or whoever, right?
Right.
Why are people reaching out to you out of the gate, and what do you end up doing for them?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that a lot of times, what we do is sort of the end result of this need for other companies to kind of express their brand in different ways. So a lot of times people will come to us with sort of like, we really want to re-explore our messaging. We really want to reconnect with our audience. We have new services that we're updating. We're trying to really kind of, be this leader in this space. That's sort of the itch where they come to us. And then how does that then kind of represent itself through their brand ideation? How does that communicate with the web experience? So that's typically kind of like the higher need is like, we have something that we're trying to say, and this is the audience that we're trying to connect to. How do we make this appealing for these audience members, not only to immerse ourselves in our materials, but to take action? So that's really kind of the genesis that kind of is created, when they try to reach out to us initially. And then, as far as like how we meet these clients, it goes in a variety of ways. As I mentioned earlier, we have a slew of different partnerships with a lot of larger agencies. I kind of call us that, that little bird that's on the back of a rhinoceros and kind of picks at like the ends. Like we're like that little bird. And then we have these big rhinoceroses that kind of give us the projects that are kind of, below their rates, so Huge is one of them. Their engagements are fairly high. Ours are not that extensive. So that's one way that we get intros. The other way is, referrals. A lot of our clients work with us even after onboarding, and then post delivery, we have monthly engagements and monthly retainers with, I think, like 90% of our clients. So they're very happy with the work that we've delivered. And so they're very happy to tell other people about their experiences working with us. Bad news travels faster than good news. So it's always great that we're getting good news, even like, at a fast, high rate with our satisfied clients and their their friends and partners and things like that. So that's a little bit how we kind of get people to Yellow Lion, or how people come to Yellow Lion.
Well, now people know a little bit about what you do professionally, but we do a thing here on the Some Disruptors podcast where we ask our guest to come into the world that Heidi and I love to live in, because we all work crazy hours and crazy jobs. However, we have a guilty pleasure, which is the Real Housewives franchise on Bravo. Both Heidi and I have Real Housewives intros. So to inspire you, HK, hit it. Give your, and I need to know, so you know I'm going to ask. Give your intro,
You're
please.
going to love it today, too. If you think my T-shirt makes a statement, wait till you hear me roar.
Ooh,
and I know that
nice.
Mac is sometimes a little frightened as what is going to be on my shirt, but as you know, I went on a holiday, celebrate my anniversary, my big anniversary, and we did Jamaica, and then we did Miami Beach. So it just felt like a happy shirt was needed today. It is just a really amazing Miami Beach, Florida shirt. And I tell you what, marketers, if you are having, if you're looking for a vacation that's going to bring you to a level that makes you happy and bring out the ultimate in creative juices, just take a walk down Beach Drive in South Beach. Phenomenal. Everything about it is phenomenal. So not too provocative today, but
no, but I like it. I'll be there for possible in the end of April. So I am counting the minutes till I can get back to South Beach. So my intro is, I may have two names, but don't get it twisted. I know exactly who I am.
Oh, that's good. I like that one too.
Thank you.
Nice.
Okay, Michael. What you got?
All right. So the first one, I want to do a little bit of context. So, the Housewives, they've evolved their intros over the years. So back in the day, there used to be sort of a family in the background, and the housewife would turn around, and then the voiceover, their tagline would go. So imagine there's like children, my kids that I don't have yet are there. And then so is my husband. So then mine would be, no one comes between this bear and her cubs. or alternatively, you could say, this would be my second one would be
too.
I have another idea. You could do wherever I go, the party follows. I'm talking like
these are totally my type of people right here.
Two, three taglines. I have to come up with something much better if I had some kind of scandal that I could reference. So, who's to say, years from now, maybe I can, paprika that within my Housewives, because Housewives has kind of become true crime.
It is true crime. There's a lot of yelling.
My two favorite genres are coming together.
There's a lot of crime, actually, now that I think about it. There's a lot of jail and...
But some marketing genius with the whole idea around taglines, though, because every season, I know people that will just watch the first episode to see the credits so they can hear what that tagline is.
Yeah.
That's some genius right there.
It's the stickiness, right? I feel like the most successful products has layers. You know what I mean? So there's nuances within that product. And to me, the Housewives is very nuanced in their product. Like, there's a certain element of campiness to that franchise, or all of the franchises, really. Like, they're kind of over the top. They're sort of like, they call it a Bravo wink. So it's supposed to be something that's a little bit sort of outlandish, but that pairs nicely with kind of the lifestyle fantasy of what we're seeing. But yeah, I mean, I love it. I like all things kitsch and sort of campy, and Housewives, I think, is just that.
Well, if you think about it too, the reunion is really one of the original podcasts, right? Like that, to me, the reunion is the glue, because it sums up the whole season for sure, but you really see how these women are when they're not in their home environment with all their, their safe folks around them and their things. And it's my favorite.
It's sort of like, mud wrestling with diamonds. You know what I mean? It's great because you really get sort of a sense of like the rivalry between and plus they've gotten audience feedback. They've been able to kind of read Twitter. They've been able to kind of see what the audience's reception is. So sometimes there's sort of redemption within sort of that reunion. It's a really sort of a space to be like, not only did you live it, but now you've seen the audience's reaction to what you've done, and so that's sort of, it's kind of like all of it's like breaking the fourth wall. goes
It's
for
full
you.
circle marketing. It
Yeah,
really, I mean, to bring it back, it is. And it's people you come to know, people you come to think you know, right? And it's storylines. It's great storytelling. It's great action and crime. Right there.
yeah, no, I mean, there's stakes. The stakes are high, and people's reputations or whatever on the line, and there's alliances, and then those alliances break, and then there's new alliances. So it's glamorous Survivor in so many ways, and I think that it's been it's fun to watch. Like I said, I like things that are over the top and just interesting to watch, and so that's my guilty pleasure as well.
Maybe that's what they need to do is kick them off slowly throughout the season. So it is like Survivor with diamonds.
Survivor with diamonds. Yeah, I had an idea once where I thought like they shouldn't get rid of any of the cast. Like they should just like I would love to see like a episode where you see like Denise Richards in the background or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just sort of like
Like
get them all
Camille.
sort
Did
of
you see there's a new reality coming out that's her?
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure Lisa
Oh
Rinna is
yeah.
livid. But
I
yeah,
just saw the
definitely.
previews yesterday because admittedly I'm watching the OG New York. So I'm
Oh
watching the original
nice.
season of New
Yeah.
York.
I love
It is
Scary
so
Island is the
entertaining.
best episode of all time, I think.
Wait,
Well, there's
wait,
no production quality. It's so different. It's so raw. Like now it
Yeah.
feels there's so much production. But yes, new niece Richards. It's gonna be mhm.
listen, we talk about Joe in the French maid outfit in season 1 of Real Housewives of Orange County. Talk
Deep
about no
cut,
production
yeah, for
value.
sure.
Slade and on kids. I actually really miss hearing about all the kids. I don't even know how we ended up here, folks. Sorry, but welcome to Real Housewives.
We'll do it. We got to
Some
turn the ship
disruptors.
around. We'll do a
You know
180.
what though? I feel like we could pull it back here though, because it'd be a good question for Michael. Is I feel like just like the Real Housewives, where it feels like they always pick on one person in the season. In marketing, every year they pick on a different competency in marketing, and I feel like 2024 was about copy.
Mm,
Everything with chat and AI, it was all about picking on copy.
mm.
Like, how do you feel? Do you think, Michael, that every year it's every different seat of marketing kind of takes, whether it be PR or product or lead generation? There's always somebody in the hot seat. It feels like with marketing, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think that like you sort of have to look inward. Like it's like sort of like your business is sort of like an entity, right? I think that like a lot of times, and I have sort of an allergic reaction a little bit to LinkedIn. I think it's a lot of hype and a lot of echo chamberism. You know what I mean? So I think that like AI, right? It's like sort of like we're up to our ears and sort of like articles about AI and what will this do and what won't this do and all this stuff. And I mean, it's great to have food for thought, don't get me wrong, but I think that like at the end of the day, every business's needs are unique at every different time in their sort of like lifespan, I guess. So I think that like getting a little caught up in kind of trends and topics and things like that, I try not to really pay much attention to it because sometimes like you'll have sort of like a client and they'll have a very specific need that has nothing to do with something that's sort of in the cultural zeitgeist of what's happening in the marketing arena. I think it's good to sort of have that awareness, and I agree. I think every year there's definitely sort of a whipping person that kind of goes to the podium and then oh, this is sort of the big sort of topic at hand. But when it comes to the day-to-day interaction of clients, I never really hear them mentioning anything of that nature because they're so focused on their business. They're so focused on their growth. And a lot of times they're coming to us to solve a problem. So it's good that we sort of have that awareness, but sometimes those awarenesses do not apply with the challenges that we're being given.
Well, let's stay on that. So the challenges that they're bringing you, like, have they already gotten buy-in from across the business? So to Heidi's point, right? A lot of times when marketers face challenges, it's like, we'll figure it out, or you have $3 that you can go use to solve this issue. But do you hear from your clients like, look, I've got to herd the cats, right? This is especially
Mm,
web dev, right? Like I've got to herd 8
mm,
different divisions, and these people are signed on, these people
sure.
aren't. This is where my pressure. Like, are you hearing concern too from
Always.
a client?
Yeah. Especially, I mean, sometimes you get lucky and the CMO is running the ship and their CEO and, higher ups trust them. And, this is sort of my arena. I get to kind of call the shots. those are great. But sometimes there are those opportunities too where you have to do intensive onboarding with the marketing team. You have to do intensive boarding with sales. You have to do, with the CEO, the founder, just to make sure that you get cross signature across the way. But usually those dwindle after like the fourth or fifth week, and then you're really just working with two people after that. But it is our goal to always sort of reconnect with some of the bigger decision makers throughout the process to make sure that they're aware of how things are developing, how things are going. When we first started out as a young agency, I was kind of unaware of the power grid of a lot of these companies, right? Because I was coming from fashion. So a lot of it was sort of like, okay, so there's actually more to the story than was sort of expressed to me earlier on. So that's why, you ask those good questions during onboarding and even throughout the proposal process. It's like, I understand the bigger need, but who's driving this sort of, who's driving this project and who is really sort of, really trying to get these results and focused on these things. Sometimes it's not your point person. Sometimes it's someone, the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, so to speak. So,
Usually, yeah. What so that's their concerns. How do you help your clients get ready to kick off a project?
I think that like we ask their intention, like I want to understand because like not only in terms of the end result, like not only in terms of course KPIs and things like that, but really like how does this play into the bigger picture of the legacy of the work? How does this play into the bigger story that you're trying to tell years from now? What place is this going to have in that story? I always am really interested to understand what we're creating is beyond just, a service and, ultimately the service that you give or they give their customers, but there's a bigger narrative that is associated with this project. And that's something I'm very interested in understanding. Why now? Why today? How is today going to affect tomorrow? Those are my bigger questions because I think when you ask those questions, then you sort of shake the tree a little bit. And then, you get some unexpected answers that can completely sort of take you in a new direction when it comes to the project hand. Because someone may say, oh, we just want this and we just want that. And this is the end result that we're looking for. But they may be losing sight of a bigger story that is actually going to help them get what they want. And then so much more. So I try and look at it from a bigger perspective.
Is your entry point generally, you mentioned that I think 90% of your clients are on retainer now. Is your entry
Yeah.
point at project? And what, in general, when someone is first engaging with the agency, what's the entry point? Where do they generally start with you?
So 9 times out of 10, it's something tech, right? So it's either a website they want to have built or, recently we're starting to develop products. So, oh, I really want to kind of include this kind of capability within our service module. Can you develop this type of thing? And I always say, let's go back a little bit before we go into the website and before we go there. I want to understand the brand. I want to understand because it's so necessary to be able, because the website is what? It's essentially telling you a story of, who you are and what you do and why you should be interested in what I do and what I'm selling or whatever. And so that's kind of like why we kind of like go back into the bigger story of the brand, the architecture of the brand, the look and feel, who you're speaking to, how you're speaking to those users. And I think that now we're starting to get more like we want brand ideation, we want a little bit of surface level positioning, and then we want the website. And because in the beginning it was just like, oh, we just want a website, we just want a website. But I could never get myself to just do a website. I couldn't do it because I'm like, it's not fulfilling to me to just sort of like look at brand guidelines, slap something on a wireframe, and then be like, there you go. Here's your call to action. Here's your hero spot. Da 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 da. Like I just feel like there's this bigger opportunity here. And so I think that's kind of what led us into this kind of bigger category.
Staying on the website front for a minute. How often should companies be refreshing or revisiting their website experience?
think every couple of years is fine. I don't necessarily think a big overhaul is always necessary after a couple of years. But just as your business grows, your materials need to be reflective of that growth. So if your website is saying the same thing you said 2 years ago, and you're not really saying that anymore, it needs a refresh, right? Like, and you can do that sort of, either kind of updating messaging, elevating look and feel a little bit. But I would say, like, your business is alive. It's a tree. It's organic, and so all of its materials, all of the branches need to be reflective of that core. So if you're finding yourself, like, a lot of times people go, oh, don't look at my website, I haven't updated. Oh, please don't look at my website. Like, that's a sign that, you probably need to look at your website when you tell people not to look at the website. So you hear that a lot from people, even just in passing. Oh, we do this, but please, please, please don't look at it. It hasn't been done. And da, 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 da. So, that's a sign right there that maybe you should look into brushing it up a little bit. It's kind of like people get overwhelmed with it too. And I understand it is a very laborious process. However, there's low-hanging fruit you can do on your
Always.
own. So you don't have to completely rebuild it and do an overhaul. You can do things within reach that kind of make you feel a little bit better, a little bit more confident, because we actually redid our brand, our pitch decks a couple of weeks ago. And when I tell you, when we went into that call and I saw that pitch deck, I was like, oh my God, I am ready to present. Okay. Like, we got a kick-ass pitch deck. I'm ready to go. Yeah, and I feel like when you update your materials and your brand ideation, there's a confidence that happens. Like,
You're right.
it's like cleaning your house. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like throwing out a bunch of junk that doesn't really serve you anymore. Then you have guests over. It's like, yeah, this is my house.
That's right. Well, and I wondered that because the role of the website has changed so much, right? It used to be the most important, and I think you could probably argue now, especially in the B2B world, it probably is the most, I have B2B and B2C, but it is still the most important thing because at the end of the day, it's the one thing that everyone has, number one. Number two, it's the place you have the most real estate to really tell your story. And then I think the third is that people are doing so much research before they're talking to anyone. If your website and content isn't up to snuff, right? May not even be in that consideration.
Well, and I
Yeah,
think that
no.
people also have this idea, and I love that you said no one size fits all approach,
Mhm.
because either you've got someone in the camp that's like, I can't afford to do it because it's going to be $250,000, or or they have an expectation it's going to cost you like $1,000 for like 19 pages, right? So it's like, I think that there's
Right.
such a
Yeah.
disparate. I mean, how many times, and Mac, I'm sure you're in the same camp, and I'm sure, Michael, you as well. How many times do people ask you, what should my marketing budget be? And I'm like, there's not a one size fits all approach to anything. Like, what are your goals? Like, if 2 wet sticks is what you have, we'll have to just adjust your revenue to that number, right? But it's like, how many times are you faced with that? I love it. One of my roles, funny about when I ran corporate teams in corporate America, when I would go out, I'd always go out to an RFP for a website and for PR firms, those things very specifically. And mostly because it's hard to manage the process. You want to talk to people and see the creativity. And the number one question you always get when you're having, because there can never be an RFP, and my RFPs are a short form, it's like a page. There can never be like a firm that's like, yay, good, have no questions. They always want time with you and they want to ask questions. They
Yeah.
always ask what your budget is.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you're the expert. You tell me what it needs to be. And I think it's because people just can't get past that. It's going to be too much money, or I'm not going to spend enough money on this. So how do you get, when
Good.
you're starting that conversation, and I love that you're thinking at 30,000 feet, because I'm the same way.
Yeah.
You go in and build a beautiful web experience that's dev to the nines, but if the copy is off, like, you've got this beautiful imagery and all this kick-ass design and user experience, but the copy is like 1984, I can see the conflict there. So how do you start in the conversation? Like, what is that first step in kind of, I guess, discovery or information
Yeah.
gathering or whatever?
Well, I do ask the budget because, it's sort of like, I want to buy a car. How much money should I have to buy a car? It's like, well, how much money do you got? Like, you could buy a car for $1,000 if you really need a car. You could go on Craigslist. Or if you have $100,000, you could buy a really, really expensive, great car for that amount, whatever. So I like to understand, like, realistically, what are we comfortable spending here? Because no matter what, like it's also sort of like, and I always frame it like, you know, like, what's your job? Like, how much do you make in a year? Oh, I make this amount. It's like, well, you could get someone for like a lot less than that for that title. Everything, money is all about
Yeah.
perspective, and it's all about kind of like what you have and what you don't. So I first ask, what do you feel comfortable spending, and what is the expectation behind that spend? And if they say, well, you tell me, I'll say, I can give you a broad range.
Range.
Like, here's
Yeah.
the low, here's our high. But it really depends, right? Because I need to understand, like, how long do you want us to work on this with you? Like, what's the bigger appetite here? Sometimes I find too that the less willing someone is able to talk about their budget probably means they don't have a big budget. Um,
Not with me, though. Because my thing is an RFP outlines exactly what I need. And sometimes when I'm talking to different firms, I don't know where they are on the scale of expense. But I love where you're coming from.
yeah, I
Like, I
think,
love where you're coming from, right? And it's like, I love it that the previous company I worked for was an oil and gas distributor, very outside my box, was $1 billion a year company.
Mhm.
And people just assume you don't have enough money. And I'm like, I have all the money that I want to build this thing, but tell me what I need. This is who my buyer is. I'm not sure if guys driving around in lubricant trucks are going to need
Well,
to have all the sex and sizzle,
even
right?
billion-dollar
So,
companies have budgets, right? Because we
mhm.
have a billion-dollar client, Reef Capital. I mean, they're a billion-dollar enterprise based in Texas, but they have budgets. And so, like, just because someone has a ton of money, that doesn't mean their budget is, sort of like a
Less.
mile long. So that's kind of why I'm always here. And I never sort of judge whether it's a big company or a small company, because I've had some small companies have a lot of money to spend on branding and web experiences. I've had some very big, important, global leaders have, very small budgets for this. So I'm always interested to understand why. And it's not coming from a place of, oh, I can't work with you if it's like, so far. Our rates are fair, and they fluctuate, but I do want to understand what that expectation is. And as far as the RFP goes, I find that there's a lot of nuance that is not communicated in a sheet of paper. And I also want to understand, I want to do a vibe check. Like, I want to see, who am I going to be working with if we're going to doing this project together? We're a small boutique agency, and, I want to make sure that, like, the type of clients that we engage in, there's some type of great rapport, because it is going to make the success of the project much better if there's a level of trust, if there's good communication, if there's sort of like, if there's friendliness involved. You know what I'm saying? I think that, like, we've had clients who are very sort of stoic, not receptive to a lot of feedback. It's not our best work. And how could it be? We don't feel comfortable. You're shooting down ideas. Like, this is not coming from a place. What we're doing is we're trying to create something. So in order to be creative, there has to be a level of freedom
Let's
associated.
keep going down this path.
Mhm.
Heidi has an RFP right now. We're going to make this really specific, right? So Heidi has an RFP right now. She's got a Frankenstein website, right? That was probably built on WordPress by 18 different people. So she's got all these templates in the background. And when you look at the website today, let's call it a 20-page website, right? And she comes to you and says, we want to completely refresh.
Mm.
Okay. Give us the inside view of this. What are all the questions you need answered
Mm.
before you can tell Heidi how you'll even approach it, what it's going to cost? Like, what are the
Yeah.
questions you need to know so they can think about this when they're working on their art?
No, great question. And, there's a lot to consider. So if we're wiping the slate clean, right, and we're building a new house, I want to understand, what are we constructing within that house? One, from a purely mechanical and technical perspective, right? So what are the applications that we want to put in? Are there other integrations, third-party tools that you utilize that are going to be very important, that are kind of play nicely with this web experience, right? Who's going to manage this website? Do you want us to manage it? Do you need someone in-house to manage it? And then that's kind of like, the infrastructure of the web experience itself, sort of like, what is the functionality, the login portals, that kind of stuff. And then, with this sort of house being burnt down and a new one coming up, there's going to be bigger questions pertaining to what is not working with this site from a brand perspective that you want this new website to kind of bring, that is not being brought. Do you have the assets to support that website? Do you need video? Do you need icons? Do you need graphic design? Do you need, if you're kind of uplifting the brand, if we're using stock photography, can we develop sort of a custom filtration tool that is that is reflective of your brand, right? So we're trying to kind of understand like the creative boxes, also the messaging too. You mentioned, Heidi, about copywriting. Copywriting on a website is very different than copywriting in a brochure. It needs to be succinct, to the point. It also needs to have certain long tail and short tail keywords, so it has a good relationship with Google. There's a lot of different components that go into those sort
You're talking about SEO? Already my fave.
of.
Do you know how many agencies go and pitch these beautiful sites and they talk about it, but never a keyword conversation outside of a pitch or any code on the front or back to optimize that baby? Thank you. Sorry, I had to interrupt
You
you for a
must
moment there.
optimize. You have to. I mean,
Oh,
that's the thing. It has to have a good relationship. I always say, with not only with your audience, but also with Google. You need to be in bed with Google, because that's how most people are going to find you if they're typing in organically, or not going into your site directly. So that's also something I'm always curious about. Like, are there tailored keywords that we can develop that's specific to your brand, so you rank first under these sort of like keyword implementations? How can we continue to develop content for the web experience, again, to make it look alive, to make it have sort of new life in it, like once a week or whatever? Some people are not into that, but I like to put all the options out on the table. I like to say, this is sort of like how I look at it. Tell me what's within your reach, and then we'll work with that.
That's probably a good place to pause to thank our sponsor, who happens to be the Startup Marketer. Let's do a quick pause for our sponsor, but when we come back, and you can have a few minutes to think about this, Michael, is think about, so people are getting organized for a web dev project, right? You've kicked off the project. What makes a great partner on the client side? Like, should they show up? So think about that a little bit, and we'll be right back.
We love startups, but marketing for them can be hard. Whether you're a founder, a seasoned marketer, or a recent marketing grad, Startup Marketer is here to help. Startup Marketer, or SOME for short, is a first-of-its-kind marketing ecosystem designed by startup marketers with experience working with over 100 startups. We understand the unique challenges you face because we've been there, and we're sharing our cheat codes for success. With bespoke marketing templates, on-demand courses, interactive sessions with experts, and a vibrant community of like-minded professionals, SOME combines accelerator muscle with community wisdom. You can even book an expert to troubleshoot or ideate in real time with senior strategists and senior doers. In a world where marketing is a critical element for startup success, SOME equips you with everything you need to drive growth and stay ahead. So join SOME today and elevate your marketing game. Visit thestartupmarketer.com.
We are back. I am Mac McKelvey, here with Ms.
HK.
Heidi Keel. Heidi's here. And we are here with Michael as well from Yellow Lion. And Michael, so right before the break, I wanted you to think about how during a project deployment, so during a project development, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can the person, the marketer, the Heidi sitting on the other side of the desk, how can they be the best client for you? Because we know web projects can spiral out of control on time, on cost, and all this. How does the marketer show up in the best way possible to make this project come to life?
Be organized. Be organized. Number one, make sure that you give us as much context and content as we can. So when we first onboard, I asked for brand guide, whatever exists, right? So make sure that we're able to kind of like immerse ourselves in the brand, also have access to your Google Analytics, have access to the website itself, because what we want to do, not only kind of look at the brand materials, but also kind of peek under the hood of the car, so to speak, see how this site is operating, look at Google Analytics. Sometimes clients will be surprised. Like, sometimes pages are a big hit and they will have no idea that they're getting so much traffic on this, piece of content on this page. So it's good for us to have sort of an all access key card into kind of the health of the site, the analytics of the site, and then the brand materials. I would say the other thing is good communication is always really, really appreciated. So, we kind of touched on earlier, like, oh, well, sometimes there are decision makers that are not part of the project, but then have to be introduced to the project at a later point after kickoff, right? So, say like we were working with this client for 6 weeks and we developed it, and then, their CEO or their boss or whoever now has to like look at what we've been doing for 6 weeks. So I always say, please do not wait 6 weeks for them to see what we've been doing. I'm going to ask you to show them every other week. So that way, like,
Okay.
even if they're not interested, just please show it to them, because something may catch their eye and say, hey, we're going to have to kind of pivot in a different direction. So I would say that. So good communication, an all access key card. But honestly, we try and make the process very easy for our clients. I try and say on task, like when we sign our SOW, we have a Notion calendar. Everyone is fully aware of what deliverables will happen every week. I give a few weeks wiggle room. So if we need to pause, if there's room for reconsiderations, that needs to happen too. I want to make sure our clients feel like, as we are giving them things, because we give a lot and we give it a lot fast, there's time for them to meditate. There's time for them to take a step back, because this is also important for them to digest and make sure that what we're doing is resonating with them. And that's kind of really it for the client's part. We take on a lot of the burden of the organization, of making sure that like notes are delivered after every meeting. Next steps are incredibly clear. I think that's the burden of the agency. Clients need to be led. I think clients need to have sort of like a person that they can turn to, and it's going to lead them down this process. And I think sometimes agencies expect the client to lead. I'm like, no, like the client shouldn't be leading. That's your job. You should be the one leading. That's my perspective anyway.
Do you have a favorite CMS? Would you rather build on WordPress, Webflow? Like, do you
I
have a
like
favorite?
WordPress for a few reasons. One, I think that it's industry standard. 70% of all global websites are built on WordPress. Fortune 500 web experiences, a lot of them are built on WordPress. The other thing, and this is sort of the whack-a-mole situation of CMS, and that's why I asked earlier, do you want to control that website? Do you want to have your team internally be able to make changes? Or do you want us? Because then say we want to do a React website, which is a very sophisticated, sexy, cutting edge type of CMS, and you can do a lot of stuff, but it is not sort of friendly to the layman when it comes to updating, things on a website. WordPress, you could copy and paste an entire page and then redo it all yourself without the assistance of any of our team members.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead.
you just said something though that I actually would love to talk a little bit more about, because we see this all the time in the startup space, which is the founders have been pitched from their, I don't know, their college classmate's son is
Mhm.
a developer and is going to build their website for them for $5,000. So they build it, and then they hire this guy to manage it going forward, because it's all custom coded. Nobody can do a single update to it,
No,
right? And
no.
if you can't get this guy on the phone and your website, you're literally held hostage. And there's so many companies that we've seen over the years that go down that path first, because to Heidi's point, they're looking at the dollars. What they don't realize is they've actually built something that's cost them a lot more than they probably would have spent should they had they done it right. And
Mhm.
it's going to cost them a lot more in the long run, because they're going to have to pull that out and build something on a CMS that they can manage. Because you're right. If you have to pay somebody to upload a blog every other day, that does not seem like a good use of time, when your content person should be able to upload a blog.
Yeah, autonomy is key. I always, I like to say to our clients, we want to give you the keys to the car. You can drive it into the sunset if you want, right? Like we don't want you to be connected or chained to Yellow Lion. I want to create something that is autonomized for the client. Like, you should have full access and full capabilities to maintain it, to change it, post delivery. That's sort of our value. But I think that, like, and listen, I was a 5,000 website developer at one point for friends and family, and
Yeah,
whatever.
we've all used
No,
them.
no
No
shame there.
disrespect. Yeah, and
But
no disrespect to them
no,
either.
no,
My
no. But
husband and
you're
your
to your
mother.
point, it's like, are you running a lemonade stand, or are you doing a enterprise, corporation? Like, what are we doing? Like, so like, you can get anything for any price. If I wanted something done, I could say, I want this done for $15. I'm going to find someone to do it for $15. Then you're going to get a $15 job.
Correct. You get a
Okay,
dot.
I have a follow-up question around the content. You talked about CMS and the ability, flexibility, because I've heard conversations where people fight about this frequently. So you are, I'm going to set the table. You're an organization that lives and dies by the inbound leads that you generate through your web experience.
Yes.
And like whatever that looks like.
Sure.
Frequency of updating landing page or homepage copy in that experience. What's your recommendation there? How frequently should it happen?
I think it depends on the business. I think more importantly, I think that, like, it just varies. I'd say a good average time would be like 8 months to a year, right? Because there's always going to be something that's going to push you one way or another to update it, to update messaging. A lot of times I tell people, like, we'll have sort of dynamic parts of a homepage. So for an example, maybe a ticker that will lead to a latest news article, or a hero spot that can rotate, or we swap out the main hero image for another image based on sort of, what are our initiatives this quarter? What do we really want to push? What do we want to really say about us? The other thing too is, like, blog content is actually great. Like, it's really good for SEO. It's really good for visibility. And I that's kind of like my cheat. If you really want great SEO and you really want the site to come alive and you want tailored keywords, do a blog. And I think that that's kind of a great, and Google recognizes that too. Google wants to make sure that there's, blood being put into the site, so to speak. So it's a living entity. It's not just something that's sort of stagnant for a couple of years and then you rebuild it. So to answer your point, I would say like maybe 8 months. But I think that more importantly though, is to update something on the site. So if it's a new blog, that counts as an update.
So it's continuously keeping it fresh, but it doesn't have to be a major update every time. That's what you're saying.
No, not a major update, but it also depends too. It's like, are you doing the site update for SEO words, or are you trying to do it because you're trying to shift narrative, within the framework of the company?
Or you have no conversion at all, so your
Right.
message isn't working.
Totally, right. And that's also something too, like, sluggish conversion. Like, why aren't people clicking? It's like, well, how are you telling your story? Are you reminding them to click? And there's also such a thing as like too much call to action, right? Like, one guy wanted us to do, this is years ago, wanted us to do a pop-up that you couldn't get out of. I was like, that is a terrible idea. They're going to not trust you because you tricked them, and had to kind of talk him off the ledge a little. I was like, no, like, he's like, but it's going to give us bigger retention. I was like, you're holding them hostage. You can't do that.
I want to stay on this. What are some other horror stories? Like, what are like definite no, don't do this? Like, that's a good one.
I hate pop-ups personally. I think they're so tacky and old. Like, I call them the house fly of the internet. It's like, get out of here kind of thing. I'd say that, but I think that, like, a lot of it is fair game. I think the quicker that you can get someone to understand what you're trying to say and what you want them to do, that's the best strategy, right? Also, the way that people navigate websites has changed largely because of, like, people on their phones on Instagram and social media.
It's just going to go there.
Up and down, right? So scrolling north to south, that's how your information should come in. A lot of times, and we've been guilty of this, like, we'll come up with like these like carousels. I'm like, don't do a carousel. No one is clicking through a carousel. They're going to just scroll through your homepage, click, and then scroll through the next page. So, like, that's sort of how you have to think of how that user is going to operate and navigate that website, is really through scrolling.
I think that's a huge one. We get that all the time, which is like, what should our mobile experience be? I'm like, wrong question. It's, what do you want your customer experience to be on whatever device they are choosing to interact with you?
Yeah, as close to Instagram as possible. That's my advice, because everyone's familiar with it, right? Like, it's like, use tactics and techniques that people already know.
Like vertical video?
Yeah.
And also consider that Google algorithm, if you're going to do a lot of paid search, you'll pay more money for paid click traffic if it's not a conversion based experience. That's the other thing I see time and time again. It is like there's no ability to convert anybody. You're spending money and Google going to be mad. You're not going to give them an opportunity even to give you your blood type or anything. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, and you also want to
Or
like
asking them for the blood type. That's probably not good either.
right,
Young
right.
marketers don't ask for that. No,
Yeah,
it
No.
was a joke.
CCPA. Okay, so I'm a young person that wants to get into your world.
Huh?
Where do you start in fashion? Where
Fashion school.
the
Right
FIT?
there. And then after that, have a clothing brand and then start a website. Honestly, like listen, there's no single road to get where you need to go. I'm a firm believer in that. People go to very interesting places in life through a lot of different avenues. I'd say like, if formal education isn't your thing and you're late in life and you're trying other things and this is calling your name, the first thing that I did was, I strictly worked in Wix because that was a platform and it was just myself. And my goal at the time was just to build $500 websites. I was like, if I can build $500 websites and I did the math and then I can pay my rent and then I can do this and I can do that. So the bar was very low for me at the time. I just wanted to work. And so the first thing I did was I wrote the name of all my friends' bosses and parents. And then I said like, okay, I know my friend's mom does this and she works for this company. I know my friend's dad does this. My friend, Tiffany works at this marketing company and I would like to know that boss. So I just wrote down a ton of things, like a list, right? And so then like I started like, I'm a social person. I like to go out and have fun. So I would bring him out for, hey, can I touch you? Can we get a drink? I have an idea that I'm working through. And so then I would, talk to them and I would say, can I talk to your dad about this? Like, I think you need a new website. And, sure enough, you knock on all the doors, someone's going to open it and someone's going to give you a shot. So to me, it was really about networking. It was about getting out there and going within the people that I knew, the people that I felt comfortable with, and the people that I thought like, they like me, I like them. If they needed something, I would help them out. So sure enough, they returned the favor. And then that's kind of how Yellow Lion sort of started initially, was just through trying to meet people and then build these like really kind of cheap websites on Wix. And it worked.
I have a crazy controversial question. Should marketing own the website?
Should marketing own the website? No, it's a collaborative tool. A website isn't just for marketers. It's also for sales. It's also for the CEO. It's the heartbeat of the business. Like, I think that like if it were just a marketing tool, then yeah. And in part it's a large part of it is marketing, but there's a lot of other things that are considered in that web experience, right? It can be a sales tool. It can be a place that, your brand lives on. So I think that like no one person should have ownership of it. I think it should be a team sort of effort, a team endeavor. I think everyone should be aligned in what it says from a marketing perspective, what it says in the sales perspective, and what it says in the brand perspective. Because if you're all aligned on that, it strengthens your business. Because then all these departments aren't siloed. They're all speaking together as one, which is what you want your business to do anyway.
Do you see good representation on these teams from clients? Like, are you talking basically to marketers and you're not getting much exposure to product or sales or the executive team?
It is primarily marketers, but believe you me, everyone else has something to say about it. So,
That's right.
like they may be the point person, but they have opinions and they will let you know. Which is why we involve them in the onboarding process, which is why I'm always gunning to get like, can we get product? Can we get sales? Can we get the higher ups? Can we get any board members who are very interested in this project? Because I think when you include others, there's almost sort of a relief and they kind of let it go. You know what I mean? Because it's sort of like if something is done behind someone's back and then later on they find out that this was done without them ever seeing it, they're going to be so much more harsher on the project than if they were actually included earlier on and able to kind of see it. People people just want to be included, I think. I think it's a human thing, you know?
You're right. And I think they want to make sure whatever division they work with is also has a voice in it. So,
It, it's true. And it's sometimes like if it's, they say if it's hysterical, it's historical. So, I think that a lot of times if there's a big reaction for someone not being involved in something, it's because of that very reason. They don't feel seen. They don't feel like their work is valued. And I think when we do a project like this, where sort of all cylinders play a role in the output of the product we build, it's good to have those perspectives and good to have that involvement. I also kind of think it's a great team exercise too. A lot of times, like after we release it and we'll bring in, all of these different sort of departments within the business, there's a sense of celebration. There's a sense of unity. I really love sort of the sort of release of the project, because I do feel like we bring companies together. It's one of those things, because it can be, there's ebbs and flows, but like it's one of those things where it'll snap or it'll like meld you into like a solidified partnership.
It also just exposes so much. It starts so many conversations organically that you may have wanted to have, and you couldn't get to decision or consensus on it. But especially on the product side, right? Like how you talk about the products, what's the hierarchy? What do you want that customer journey to be? What content are you building for
Totally.
them? And I feel like these conversations happen all the time, but a website project can be such a great way to be a forcing function.
It's so
really.
much fun too, I gotta say, because you're involving technology, design, animation, copy, storytelling. Like you're basically making a mini film, an interactive film, a choose your own adventure film within your own brand. Like I personally, that's why I truly love what we do, was because I feel like we're producing something. I think that we're producing something interesting, and I think that it requires teamwork and thought and disagreements and all the great things that come with collaboration.
So, okay, setting yourself up. So we talked about the things that can make it hard. Actually, let me ask another question.
Go for it.
Startups. Why do we all, I'm going to put myself in there too. Why do we all play it so safe when doing a web dev project? Why don't we?
Scared. We're scared. We want to please. We want to please everybody. We're people pleasers. We want to make sure everyone feels seen and heard, and da 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 da. My husband is doing I'm working on his brand for his acupuncture practice. He graduated from Eastern medicine. Now he's performing acupuncture, and it's interesting because I'm trying to like I'm not his husband. I'm trying to like get in his mind as a business owner, right? And there's always trepidation behind this one thing that he really wants to. So one of the things that acupuncture does is like, it's not only physical healing, but there's a spiritual component to as well. He's very shy about talking about that spiritual component, but that is what drove him to want to do the practice, is that connection between the mind, the body, and the spirit. But he thinks that it's going to isolate and people are going to think it's too woo-woo. And maybe it is for some, right? And I said, that's okay, though, but that's not your audience.
I was going to say, but you're not marketing to everyone.
No, that's exactly right. And
people that
Right, exactly. And so we're all guilty of the same thing. It's like, we're not marketing to everybody, people. Like, these are the people that we want to talk to. But, then we get scared because, we feel like there's scarcity. Oh, well, then we're going to miss out on opportunity if we say this. And, so I think there's this sort of like worst case scenario that lives within all of our heads. And because we're putting it all on the line, we're always afraid to be, we're already feeling like we're already risking it by being just a startup. And now we're adding to the risk of actually saying something that could potentially isolate us versus getting us to the people that need to be with us so we can be successful with the right people, right? So I think that's sort of the struggle, is like we're already having it all out on the line. And that's already scary. It's like, why add more fear to this? So that's kind of what I think.
True. It's just, I know it's tough because it is such a line to kind of toe, but it is hard. And I'm assuming you do this all the time when you're doing the competitive view, right? And you have 6 companies, and what this 6th company wants to go do is what the other 5 already doing what they're saying, how they're saying it. The colors are the same. Like, how do you help somebody just be like, look, are you going to be in the sea of sameness, or do you want to be the standout?
I try and get them to champion the things that make them unique about themselves. I think it's sort of like you have to kind of bring it back to those initial conversations of where the sparks were, right? Where the excitement was, where there was bass in the voice. Because when you start then going into sort of like, there's a part of the creative process. Well, our other competitors don't do that. Oh, everyone's using purple. We need to use purple. But like, but you're not them. The whole purpose of this is so to differentiate yourself, right? I had a client once and they were like constantly saying, we want to be cutting edge. We want to be cutting edge. And then they would show me these basic sites and we like this. I'm like, is this your definition of cutting edge? They'd be like, no. I'm like, so then why are you showing it to me? I would say it with love and, whatever. But like my point was that like, you're referring to very basic experiences. And here you are telling me you want to be cutting edge. Say, oh, well, this is what our customers are used to. It's like, but the whole point is that we're trying to do a departure. Sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. And so when you lose, it's fine. Because I always tell my lead UX UI person, Justin, is phenomenal. I said, it's just a creative problem for us. Let's give them something that they like, but let's do it in an interesting way. So we'll kind of do a play on something that they're seeing that they like, and then we'll actually kind of make it cutting edge, right? So again, I consider all of these problems for us, right? You get a difficult client, you get a client that's a problem for you. That is not a problem for them. And it's up to us to figure out within our skill sets how we can actually give them what we want, but also give us something that like makes us look good too.
Okay, so since we did a big thing on housewives to take us home, I would like you to give a rose and a thorn, your favorite project you've ever worked on.
Mm.
You don't have to name the company for the least favorite, but just to give a view of what was your least favorite to work on. And again, don't name.
No, I won't name. God no. Rose. I gotta tell you, we've been very lucky. There's a lot of roses.
All right, so maybe just one rose. So everyone that's listening that's worked with Michael, he loves you. And
I love mine. They know I send out
roses.
Christmas gifts to them. Like I remember their kids' birthdays. I have everything like written down. I would say like recent. Oh, okay. I have a really nice story. So, last week we went in on a very big pitch for us. It was really, really big, and we were so excited to do it. We worked really hard on it. We had our animation people create this really cool animation on this like thought starter that we did. I mean, and when we presented it, we were like on fire. It was such a great, she was so engaged in it. It was awesome. The thing I like to do afterwards is I like to send, referrals, right? So I sent an email and I was kind of like sweating bullets. Like, she wants to make a decision soon. So I need everyone to kind of write in and tell her, feedback about your line. Anyway. So this person that worked at Reef, which was the company that I had mentioned earlier, the sort of billion-dollar real estate company in Texas, I emailed the VP of marketing and I said, hey, would you write something nice about us to this person? She BCC'd me and wrote like 4 paragraphs and like just went in on how much she loved working with us, how she should definitely hire us. And then we got another email from Duro, which is a SpaceX, former SpaceX engineers formed this company. Again, paragraphs. Like this wasn't just sort of like, these guys are great. Here you go, send. Like they actually spent some time in it, and that really moved me, honestly. I was almost teary-eyed because I was like, that tells me that we're doing something right, that like our heart's in the right place. They see our efforts. So that was definitely like a field of roses for me. As far as the thorn goes, I have a very sort of I have a big philosophy on hardship, and I have a thing with like difficult people, difficult clients, difficult circumstances. We had actually 2 last year that were really, really brutal, and for no reason. They were kind of not nice people, I don't think. But it turned into a rose. We turned it around. They were very happy with what we wanted. They actually wanted to keep working with us, but But then, things happen. But anyway, I think that what it taught me was, and when you work with a difficult client, your whole body feels it. Like, you dread these meetings, you think about it, you start thinking, you start turning it on yourself, like, oh my God, am I not doing my job right? Am I dropping the ball here? Like, you start really sort of like psyching yourself out. I think that, like, the rows out of those, I learned to let go. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna keep having a positive attitude. I'm gonna keep working hard, and I'm gonna do exactly what I say I'm gonna do. But I'm releasing it. Like, I'm releasing it. I'm letting it go. It's not attached to me anymore. So that was sort of my thorn turned into a rose.
I love it. What a marketer. That instead of just
Yeah,
answering
put
the
a positive spin on
he
something.
has to make it spin it positive. No, that's I love to hear that though, because that is, I mean, it really is. All three of us run small businesses, right? So we know how, and that for every marketer listening, like, there's a person on the other side, right? And we care deeply about that person's success. And I think that's what I took from your thorn is
Yeah, and
you still need care, and you
I have
need
compassion for these people too that we work with. Their heads are on the guillotine. They are scared for their jobs. And so when they work with us, I can sometimes, in the beginning, I can feel them racing, like, oh my God, don't let me down. Oh, like, because I think that, like, it's a dog eat dog world. I think that, like, if they deliver a dud, then they're the ones that are going to get, punished for it. So I have a lot of sympathy, and I feel very protective of our point people, because I know they're taking a gamble on working and selecting us, right? So I always remember that.
I love that. Well, Michael Verez Mora, the founder and CEO of Yellow Lion, how can people get in touch with you?
You can email me at michael@yellowlionmedia.com. And I'm on LinkedIn, Michael Verez Mora. And that's it. I don't have social media.
I mean, I
Except
can't.
for LinkedIn. That's really it. That's all I got.
Which
So
is,
email me.
we're going to put in parentheses social or quotes, social media.
Right. I mean, LinkedIn, I guess, is social, but yeah.
Well, thank you for being here today. Huge fan of the work that Yellow Lion is doing. And before we started recording, you said something funny, because we know that Heidi runs the Lioness Collective. And do you remember what you said?
Yeah, we're part of the same pride. We're a proud unit.
Yes, we are, sir. Yes,
Absolutely.
we are.
Well, Michael, we wish you all the continued success. Thanks for joining us today. And
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll be back with another episode of the Some Disruptors podcast soon. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Bye.